I grew up in the Florida Panhandle. So I'm originally from Florida, and I grew up in a small town between Tallahassee and Pensacola, Florida. So I'm a child of the South. So I remember that it was if you were homosexual, if you were a Haitian, hemophiliac, that you were someone who should be avoided, because those were the people who were creating and spreading this horrible disease. And so I remember there was a lot of fear. I remember being fearful of what do you do to protect yourself, because there was so much fear, and a lot of it was not based on knowledge, actual knowledge, but just people's just ignorance about what was going on. It was around that time that I met someone who, his name was Michael, and we developed a friendship. During that time, he shared with me that he was actually HIV positive. It was the first time that I had met someone that had disclosed their status to me, and my world had been really small. And after meeting him and learning more about his life, his experience, the world just opened up to me in so many ways, because then I had to really focus on educating myself, understanding what it meant to him and to other people who were living with the virus. I started going to groups that were gay-led, where people were talking about HIV, and even in those groups, people were fearful because people were getting sick, and folks who, even when they were, they didn't want to disclose their status because they didn't know what that meant, and then having to disclose that to their family and friends. So it was a really strange time, because there wasn't that we know so much more now than we did back then. We moved to Seattle in 1992. We had some friends that lived here in Seattle, and so we decided to move up and be here because we had some connections. And also, when we arrived here in Seattle at the time, they had this resource list, all the resources that for people who were living with HIV, that including chicken soup and so on, and it was amazing. And Michael said, this is where I want to be. I want to be in a place like this that has the resources and has the support for both of us. And so we came out here in 1992, right after I finished school. So when we got here, we both found work, but it was clear that his health was taking a turn, and so I was going to be the one that had to work to support us both. I was working full time, making sure that we had the support, and Michael got connected with the services here, and at the time there was Northwest Days Foundation, Chicken Soup, and I had to find support for myself, and that's where I decided. I reached out to Brother to Brother, and that's where I would go to get support. And it was wonderful to be in this space of black men, people that looked like me, people who understood my experience, and I could just go there and just be. And that was refreshing, especially for Seattle, because one of the things I didn't realize until we got here is that Seattle is an extremely white city. But when you looked around, for me, it was really hard to connect with other gay black men. And so Brother to Brother was that space for me, and it was, I think in many respects, I'm here today because of that support and that love and that acceptance that I got from that space, because I didn't find that anywhere else in Seattle. I remember going to the first meeting and walking in, and of course I was anxious, because I was I had never experienced being in a setting of all black men, all black gay men, and so walking into that, I didn't know what to expect, and it was wonderful. It's I felt like I was the little brother that was walking in, and people just embraced me, and they were like, oh, and realizing that there are a lot of folks who are from the South. It's like that connection of oh, come on in, we got you. It was wonderful to feel embraced in that way. People were dying left and right. Literally, you would open the paper and you would just see pictures and just reports of people who were just dying, daily. So it was a tough time. And it's just like, we're here to support each other, and we're here to do what we can to make sure that we all get through this. So people would just talk about how they were feeling, what's going on. And so it could be about, what was going on for people health-wise. We would say, okay, there's going to be a card party at so-and-so's house. We're going to have a potluck at so-and-so's house. Just really doing what we could do to support each other and lift each other up. So we would basically do these check-ins. We would talk about what's happening in terms of events, who was coming to town, if there were going to be presentations, so that we were all in the loop and that we all knew what we needed to do to support each other. And there would be times where people would talk about going to access services somewhere and experiences they would have, and then we would talk about what could we do as a group to help support that person or address those issues. So it was really a mixed bag of just about how we can support each other, and also how we could address some of the inequities that were happening in these systems that that in many cases we felt like weren't designed for us. And for me, I always look forward to it, just because I knew once I walked in there, it was just like, oh, okay, I can just be. I don't have to worry about how I sound or what I'm looking like. It was just, I was home. Every time that I went to Brother, I knew that there would be folks there that looked like me, that understood my experience, and where I could talk about, racism, I could talk about homophobia from, other folks in our community. And I didn't have to provide context and background. Folks got it. And that didn't take energy. And so I was able to leave from that space feeling recharged and ready to go out and do more. Because as a black person, as a queer black person, your batteries can drain quickly, because there would be days where I would walk around literally and not see another black person. And that's not an exaggeration. So to walk into a space where there's a room full of us, it was just like, oh my, thank you. It's tough seeing my partner, seeing his body just, fade. And so Brother to Brother was really, a godsend for me, because, some of the people that I met, I still have connections with today. Many of them aren't around. They've since passed on. But the things that they provided for me during that time of getting established here, I will never forget.